Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I am your host, Rico. That handsome next to me, that's my co-host, Mr. Chuck Snow. And if you guys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, would do us a huge favor before we get the show underway, if you would make sure that you would do us that small little favor of making sure that you like, share, and subscribe. You find anything that we talk about today entertaining, useful, comical, whatever, it doesn't matter. We'll take it all. If you would make sure that you give us a like and a share, that helps us out tremendously, helps us get the show out to a bigger and broader audience. And with that being said, Chuck, good. We're pre-recording this, so I have to keep that in mind. So good morning, Chuck. How are you?
Well, we're doing great. We had a long weekend up in Canada yesterday, and we had the Monday off, and the weather was beautiful. And had the grandkids over on Saturday or on Sunday, and everything is good.
Good deal, good deal. And we're recording this. I'm coming to you guys. We're recording this. I'm in the cab of the truck as we speak. So if you hear a little noise or something like that, don't just overlook it for right now.
We will do that. We're great to have you on.
So last week we kind of, we touched on the advisory verdict. It's not a final verdict from C.H. Robinson, the $604 million advisory verdict. And we know that thing's going to probably get appealed to the high heavens. So probably a couple of years away, maybe even five or 6 years away from that thing actually being a reality as far as what the actual outcome is going to be on that one. So we're going to keep our eyes on that one and follow back up and let everybody know any developments, any new developments that come down the pike as far as that's concerned.
But I do think, Rico, out of that, you're going to see a lot of the larger brokers and even some of the small, really well-run brokerage operations. They're going to start getting a lot fussier on who's hauling their freight.
Oh, absolutely. I'm already starting to see it. I'm starting to see it in negotiations, talking with brokers. I'm starting to see it. I'm starting to see updated contracts coming out.
Exactly. You're going to see what I predict is we will still see the transactional bottom feeders. They will give a load to a dog driving a truck. I'm not exaggerating. As long as the rate is good, because they're not really in it for the long time. They're not building a business.
Yeah, I'm getting, and I'm curious to know, Chuck, before we get into this week's numbers and everything. I've been getting a lot of emails from a few brokers when it comes to, and this will kind of tie into what our bigger subject was. We're going to talk about trying to get into a little bit of partials. But I've been getting some emails from brokers, and they have some dedicated runs, and they're looking for carriers to put on these dedicated runs. I'm assuming with everything like we were just talking about with the C.H. Robinson verdict coming down and everything else, they're trying to kind of insulate themselves a little bit from dealing so much on the spot market.
100%.
However, it has been my experience when they send these for these past few ones. I shouldn't say that's been my experience because I've had some experiences with some brokers, and I've got one now that I'm working with on a consistent basis on some. It's not necessarily dedicated as one customer or whatever, but me and this broker just kind of have an arrangement to where he knows my service area and he always looks out and gives me nice paying loads in the lanes that I'm ready to run.
Right.
But now on these ones that have these dedicated, I'm seeing that I guess that they're trying to, from a perspective of it's dedicated, so you don't have to be running out and looking so much, and so they're trying to get a cheaper price than what the average going rate is on that particular lane. As a carrier, I'm looking at it as if I'm dedicating my capacity to you in this customer, that deserves a premium.
I would agree. No, I agree with you because of the fact the spot market at certain times can pay very well. and you're giving up that opportunity, at least on one way. You're not going to have that. So, but this way you guarantee him a truck every Tuesday at 4 o'clock.
Right.
You've
So,
got to be paid for that.
and that was my line of thinking. I wanted to make sure I didn't want to prep you on that question, and then I wanted to see if I was maybe thinking along the wrong lines. Maybe you could set me straight, but I just wanted to kind of get your perspective on that.
The only time that we would see a deal on those is we would have a load every week Tuesday at 4 p.m. And some carrier would call me and say, listen, I really need that because that's my backhaul or it's my head haul to get to where I need to be for every Thursday to bring a load back for my own customer or for another broker. Let's work something out. And sometimes that can work. And they would say, I'll give you a little better price because I need to get there. But they need you to be there. So it's a little different. The shoe's on the other foot. They've got to give you the better price.
Got it. Got it.
Now,
So
if you find a complimentary shipper on the other side that's going to get you back there where you want, you may want to give him a little bit of a break because now that really sets you up for a nice round trip every week.
exactly. Well, getting into the proceedings this week, um, and we have been on a constant trajectory up to the right, as they say.
Yes.
Instead of down and to the right, we're going up into. So as we can see here by the chart, that national diesel price averages around $5.31 per gallon down here in the U.S. That is up by 17 cents from the previous week. Cost impact 11.3 cents per mile since July 6th. If your truck is averaging 6.5 miles per gallon. Recover the increase through fuel surcharges, lane-specific pricing, price deadhead before accepting the load. So I noticed that, like I said, we were kind of in the July slump. We're now in the month of August. We're starting to see a little bit of volume come back into the market. Make sure that you are keeping your eye on the fuel to make sure that you are pricing accordingly. So anything you want to add to the increasing price of operating truck when it comes to the fuel costs?
Shop around, like for your sake, for you're running your business, you're a member of NASDAQ. See what you can do to get fuel discounts. When fuel's this expensive, watch your driving. Don't be driving at 68 miles an hour when you don't have to be, unless your truck does real well at 68. Most of them don't. Keep your fuel expenses down wherever you can. Don't idle. All those things, use some fuel conditioner, and just drive a little slower and you can get through this.
Good deal. All right. Well, we're going to jump on down and we're going to look and see how dry vans were performing over the previous week. So we're showing that the average rate per mile for a dry van's checking in at $2.32 per mile on average. Now, please remember, always the caveat is that these prices, these rates that we're sharing with you guys, these are without fuel surcharge. So your mileage may vary. So the average without the fuel surcharge is showing $2.32 per mile for dry vans. That's down 2.4% week over week. Still, we are up 42% year over year. And the load to truck ratio is sitting around 10.93 on average for dry vans. Top origins for dry vans showing California, showing an average of $2.68 per mile. Once again, that's without the fuel surcharge.
Right.
Capacity signals that trucking post fell 12.5%, while post fell 3.6%. Spot now sits at 7 cents above the contractor rate. The carrier takeaway for this for dry vans is to protect the outbound rate before entering Florida or South Georgia. That market fell by $1.75 per mile. So we're starting to see that the seasonality of the produce lanes down in Florida and South Georgia are starting to dry up. That produce trail is starting to matriculate up further north. So
yeah,
proceed with caution if that's one of the areas that you were kind of looking to hit up and take away from. Moving over to flatbeds, showing an average rate for flatbeds checking in at $2.83 per mile. That is down by 1.5% week over week. We're still year over year, we're up by 39.6%. Load to truck ratios for flatbeds sit at 41 loads per truck. Top origin for flatbeds is showing that the southeastern region averaging $3.48 per mile on average. That's without the fuel surcharge. And the Carolinas seems to be the spot that's the honey hole for flatbeds as of last week. Market signals: truck post fell by 8% versus a 4.2 load post decline. Most loading origins still eased. And so we're the thing about the carrier takeaway is to lean into the Southeast and the Carolinas and protect the backhaul economics. And jumping over into the reefer portion of the report, we are showing that the average price for reefers this week was at $2.65 per mile on average. That is down by 2.6% week over week. That is 37%. We're still seeing at 37.7% higher than we were year over year. So we are 37% higher than what we were this time last year. Load to truck ratios for reefers strongly still sit around 19 loads to truck. Top origins: lower Midwest, Ohio River. And in those lanes, we're showing an average rate of $3.17 per mile for reefers. Load postings rose by 1.6%, while truck postings fell by 10.3%. Spot carriers, a 16% premium over contract. So we're starting to see, like I was saying, the July slump that we were noticing. Now we're starting to see going into August, we're starting to volume starting to pick back up. Carrier takeaways is sell tighter capacity, but routes around weaker Southeast and Carolina exits. So the overview, kind of the 60,000 foot for all three segments, we're showing that we're down across the board, but we're still in good territory. All three national rates ease, but truck availability contract faster than freight. The tight capacity still supports disciplined pricing. And your hot markets for dry vans is California, for reefers lower Midwest, flatbed is the Southeast. Southern caution: Florida, South Georgia dry van fell by $1.75 per mile, down 7.7%. Price this exit before accepting inbound freight. So that's showing what that. I'm gonna tell you exactly what that is. That's your watermelons.
And they're done in Florida. I bought Ontario watermelons this weekend.
Yeah. So that's your watermelons. So that, ladies and gentlemen, kind of gives us a wrap up of the rates and the lanes for this previous week. We're kind of looking forward to what next week may hold. But I'm going to put up another graphic because this is what we were kind of our subject matter for this week. This is often an overlooked segment of revenue that you could generate if you start to get into partial loads. And Chuck has kind of got an affinity for partial loads. He kind of
knows
that he knows that there's backwards and forwards, and so he's going to share a little bit of his knowledge and information with us. And I'm going to sit back, shut up, and take some notes myself.
Well, the hardest thing about the partial load business, and let's just get this straight: we're not competing with I don't think we're competing with the Old Dominions and the RNLs of the world, because those are LTL carriers. They will pick up the one pallet. And I have to tell you, from having done this, actually having written the book on this one up here in Canada, what happens is it costs as much to pick up one pallet as it does a truckload, because No offense, I said it here before. Trucks are stupid. They don't know where they're going. They're machines. They
Right.
don't have a brain. It costs you the same. The truck does not know that it's picking up one skid or picking up 8 skids. So it's very, very difficult to do this with one skid orders. I know people have tried it. It just takes too long, especially with traffic congestion. You need to start when you're building LTL, first of all, you have to have a plan, and you have to have you're going to need freight brokers. You could have a customer of your own, and you know that customer ships, let's just say, a half load every week from Chicago to Memphis. There's a great example. Well, then you go around to every broker in the Chicago area and say, look, I'm looking for a half load every week from the Chicago area to Memphis. And you get their smaller skids. Now, if you're going to do the one skid orders, the only way it works is you usually have to get them picked up by a cartage agent, unless you happen to be right around the corner and they load it quickly. But quite often we found we were spending 3 hours picking up one skid, it's the same as 3 hours picking up a half load, which doesn't work. You've got to get these partial loads loaded quickly. That doesn't work also. You can use cartage agents if you can find one that is cost effective. And what you do is you've got to have point A to point B, and that is where you go to. You can't be going all over the place, and you've got to make sure, if you're going from, let's say, Chicago to Memphis, you've got to make sure you're not going to lose an entire day delivering to St. Louis. That's going to mess up your delivery in Memphis.
So that speaks to kind of bullet point number one. It says anchor the trip. First shipment covers break even and most of the lane target.
That's what you need to do. You've got to get usually 8 to 10 skids on the nose of the trailer, and that's the star of your show, as I used to call it. That's your anchor freight. And then you start building from there.
So going to bullet point number two, and you kind of touched on this as well, sell real capacity. Quote pallets, deck features, weight, cube, temperature, and stops. So these are all the factors that you need to make sure go into your rate quotation if you're looking at doing any type of partials.
Right. Now I want to just add something. Don't be afraid to go after a 5,000-pound pallet, but that's going to use up basically 3 pallet spots, because there's no 2.5. It's 3. What I allowed always with partial loads, I would allow 2,000 pounds a pallet on partials. And the reason I allowed 2,000 pounds on partials was because a lot of pallets were a lot less. And, we used to have one customer that would send us actually down, my computer came unplugged. You there? Hang on.
Yeah, we still got you.
So we had this other customer that would ship to Memphis, and he would have pallets that weighed 300 pounds. So I could afford to pick up 2,000-pound pallets, and his 300-pound pallets that we could put on top of the 2,000 complemented it very nicely. And just leave some space in between. You're going to need some equipment. I would not try this without having a trailer with logistics posts, e-tracking. You want to have bars, and you need to have straps. And when you get the straps, get the good ratchet straps, and you need to get corner protectors. These are things you're going to need, tools of the trade. So when you ratchet that strap in, you're not going to damage the sides, because you don't want to claim on your hands. And then what you can also do is, when you have pallets that only weigh 800 pounds or so, you take your bars, you put them on top inside the e-tracking, and you can place other pallets on top.
So if you're not sure of the capacity, Do they give? Say if you bought a used trailer, but you got E-Tracks in the trailer.
Right.
Um, what's a good way to determine what to use to put on as far as that you were saying the decking? What's the most that you would be willing to maybe take a gamble on putting on that type of decking up there?
Well, maybe 1,000 pounds up on top. Depends on what's on the bottom. Because now all of a sudden, you don't want to be too top heavy. You don't want to be overloaded on your gross. You really have to watch your weight.
Right.
I've loaded loads out in California myself where I unloaded the trailer 3 times and rearranged it because I could put so much freight on it and weighed it every time just to make sure I had my weights right. And I came, and this is years ago. Uh, I came back from California for about $15,000.
One
Now,
load.
yeah, and that was just, and I did just as good going out, maybe even better. And that was 20 years ago. You could do that today. It's
Right.
not impossible. It's just a lot of work. And if you're willing to do the work, this is where the money is. But you've got to be really disciplined. Like you have to work within a set boundary. You can't go beyond it. You can't go all over the place, as tempting as it is.
So point number three: protect the route. No backtracking. Keep
100%.
keep the
Let
pickup and
brokers
delivery window
know
recoverable.
exactly. And in a perfect world, you would be doing this both ways if you have time. Now, the problem is if you were running from, and I'm just going to use this as an example, Rico, if you decided to do it and let's just say you were running from Atlanta, Georgia, all the way to California, then you probably couldn't do it both ways with one truck because you just wouldn't have the time.
Right.
Because you want to keep those brokers interested. Not everybody does partial loads, and you're seeing more and more companies actually shipping partial loads because people are buying less. Money's tight. Your interest rates in the U.S. they're on the high side as compared to ours. Ours are a little bit more favorable, and companies would rather buy a half load of widgets than a full load of widgets.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Especially in
So
these times. And our listeners could cash in on this. This could be a really, really lucrative business for them or sector of the business for them. And they
and so
wouldn't be fighting tooth and nail with everybody else for every penny.
bullet point number four says price the complexity, charge for extra miles, stops, dwelling, handling, and claim exposure. So make sure that you're charging accordingly to all of those different parameters when you're pricing your LTL shipments.
And there is 1 hour for loading and unloading, and that is solid. You cannot be tying up an LTL truck for 5 hours or 8 hours to load up LTL. You just can't. You'll go broke.
So the little caveat, because we pride ourselves here on the rates and lanes. We don't want to just talk about theory. We actually want to talk about real world experiences and real world scenarios. So how helpful, Chuck, is it to make sure that you keep some cash on hand so that you can maybe uh, incentivize unloading in a timely fashion?
Rico, keep a box. I'm telling you, keep things in the truck that you can give away to ship. Keep cash, okay? Uh, keep little trinkets and stuff. Like I used to keep little bottles of maple syrup in the truck. And I'd say, listen, buddy, you like pancakes? Oh, yeah. Do you like maple syrup? Yeah, I got Canadian maple syrup. Will you do me a favor? Can you just take off those 2 pallets at the back or let me take them off? I'll give you a bottle of maple syrup, homemade or made down the road, although maybe it wasn't. And you'd be surprised how fast those pallets came off.
Oh yeah, I've experienced that, especially when you go to different places, and if you have multiple stops, it definitely you can say what you want to say. I shouldn't have to. I don't like doing that. But this is the real world, and money talks, and as they say, money talks and bullshit walks. So
You
you
got
got to
it.
be, you got to go in, and sometimes you got to have a little bit of, you got to grease a couple of palms in order to get things moving in a timely fashion.
Rico, if it costs you $5 for some, for some Georgia peaches or some pecans or something, or some, some peanuts that you picked up down in the Carolinas or Virginia, and you give the guy a bag of peanuts that cost you $5, and you got out of there in 5 minutes rather than an hour, I know damn well you can't work for $5 an hour.
Right,
And there's
right.
your answer.
It may
And
be a little bit more expensive than that now. Now the probably the going price is at least $20 or something like that. So
okay, but still $20, and then maybe you can get 5 or 6 stops done in a day.
yep,
It's well worth your while. You've got to be organized. You want to be at your first delivery if you can, first thing in the morning. You want to be sleeping there at his dock or be pulling up when he's opening up that gate, so
right.
you can get a as much done in one day. And I think some of our listeners, and I don't care whether you have a reefer, a dry van, or a some sort of open equipment, there is money. There's a great company in the U.S. that does open deck, and it's called Kaiser Transport. Have you ever seen them?
Don't know if I'm familiar with it. Doesn't ring a bell right offhand.
They have. Well, you're not an open deck guy, but they have an office. Their head office in Wisconsin. They have an office in Los Angeles. We did a little bit of work with them when I was at Traffics. I don't know whether they still do now or not, but I have to tell you, this guy ran one slick LTL operation with beautiful Peterbilts. He didn't pay his drivers much, but they were lined up to drive these big, beautiful Peterbilts. And they did multi uh, pickups and multi drops on all sorts of weird and wonderful equipment. I'm talking about like stretched RGNs and all sorts of stuff. So it can be done with anything as long as you put your mind to it. And if I can help any of our listeners get through this, I would be more than glad to, because I love this. Is my favorite, one of my favorite parts of the business, because it's like a great big jigsaw puzzle that you can make money on.
All right, good deal. Well, shoot, I'm looking at the time. We're right at that, right at our little sweet spot where we like to be, Chuck. Is there
Okay,
anything else?
we
Is there
go.
anything else that you wanna add to this?
I
Or
do want to add a couple of things. Number one, I want to congratulate you on a couple of things. Number one, you have been working day and night at updating the graphics for the visuals for rates and lanes. And I think our listeners have probably noticed a great improvement in what we've been doing here. And that's all because of you. I want to thank you. You've done a great job with this. Um,
well,
and
thank
number
you.
two, I just want to talk 1 second. Congratulations, number two. You've lost some weight, buddy, and I'm glad to see it, because we want you around for a long time. You're a dear friend of mine. You've been a dear friend of mine for about 10 years now. I do call you one of my closest friends, and congratulations on this weight loss. Do you want to share with the listeners how you're doing it? Because you're getting years back, buddy.
Well, I tell you what, I kind of been searching around. I had earlier this year. I went to my doctor. Of course, I'm type 2 diabetic, so a lot of drivers out there suffer with the same thing as far as type 2 diabetes is concerned. And I one of my main goals was to always get off of medication. I've been struggling with. I've tried a lot of things. I've tried keto. I've tried carnivore. Had some success with those. It's very difficult to maintain, um, lifestyle wise. Um, you have to, you can do it. You just have to make sure that you're planning accordingly. In which I'm fortunate enough that I have a partner that helps me out tremendously when I'm on the road. I don't buy anything on the road. I have lunches packed for the entire lunches and breakfast packed for the entire week. So I have all my food. I I track my I track my food. I have a food tracker that I track my food. But one of the biggest things that has been a tremendous help to me is once I wasn't making a lot of progress on the medication that I was receiving, traditional medication. So I started hearing a lot of stuff about peptides, all these different peptides. Hey, what's and I'm curious by nature, and so I delved into the going down the rabbit hole of peptides, and I found a couple of different peptides that I've been on. Um, and you can just start Googling, and you can go to you can search YouTube University like I did to get more familiar if you want more information on peptides. But I found a couple of different peptides that I've started to incorporate, and it's helped tremendously. It has helped quiet the food noise. Some people even report I've never had this issue as far as alcohol or anything like that being a problem for myself. But a lot of people have reported that it has taken away their taste for alcohol completely.
Yeah.
Um, there are a couple of other different little offshoots benefits, but a couple of different peptides that I am. I'll share a couple of things that I have in my stack that I'm doing. Also,
Mhm.
you got to have your foundation together with doing this as well. Your foundation is you got to you're eating properly. You got to kind of get your diet locked in. You got to make sure that you are trying to do some type of exercise at least 3 times a week, preferably resistance training. So if you guys are friends with me on Instagram or whatever, you see my little crazy pictures with them. I I always post my pictures after my workouts, kind of my little accountability thing. And I tell you what, I kind of feel like I'm 25 again because it used to be when I used to do my workouts, man, I would get sore as hell. It would be just muscle soreness. I would just have really bad muscle soreness. So some of the things that I'm taking on my stack on my peptide journey is I'm taking this one is not even actually out yet. Retatrutide. Um, I'm taking Retatrutide. I am also taking uh, BPC 157. That's body protection compound 157, and TB 500. Those 3 things alone. Oh, and one more, MOTC. I have been able to reduce my average, um, my average glucose numbers used to hover right around 170, 150 ish, and that's that's in range, but that's still pretty high.
It is. Yeah.
Since I've been on my peptide journey, I have been able to maintain and stay around 110 to around 80 to 110, which
Wow.
is kind of almost non-diabetic.
That's right.
I've got at the end of this month, near the end of this month, I have to go back in and take more labs, have more blood work drawn. But all my biomarkers are heading in the right direction, and I have completely come off of all medication
Congratulations.
other than the peptides that I am on. So we are trying. We're trying. We got a goal to try to get down. We want to drop 100 pounds. So I started this journey at about 352 pounds.
Wow.
I'm about 6'4", so take that into consideration. But still, that's a lot of weight to be carrying. Not really great for if you're looking to have really good longevity. You don't see many 80-year-olds at that kind of weight. So
Well, you know what, Rico? The truth is, there's no such thing as an old fat man. There's no
right,
such. Women will live because of the way our fat is. We die.
right. And so that's one of the things that I definitely want to make sure that I want to try to put as many things in into context to try to make sure that I'm doing everything I can on my part to increase my lifespan.
Well,
So, but if,
I'm proud of
so
you, man. You know, obesity runs in my family as well. I've suffered with it since I was 9 years old. I I fight it day in, day out. But I lost a sister at 27 because of obesity.
yeah, I remember
So
you
I know
telling me
all
about that.
about it. So I'm so glad to see that you're doing something about it. And had they had things like this 50 years ago, uh, then I wouldn't have lost my sister. So congratulations, and keep fighting that battle, man. You're winning it.
We're gonna stay. We're in it for the long haul. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Oh, I know.
I appreciate it, Chuck. All right, so getting ready to kind of, I guess, put a bow on this one for this evening. Anything else we want to say? Let the people know how they can find you or get in contact with you if they have questions about today's subject on partial loads.
Yes, if anybody has any questions on the partial load business, just reach me at chucksnow280 at outlook.com and put your phone number. I will call you back and I'll walk you through. I'll help you any way I can, because I think this is a sector that a lot of our listeners could make good money at.
Good deal. Well, with that being said, we want you guys, ladies and gentlemen, to stay safe out there, stay healthy. Most importantly, stay profitable. Keep it in between the mustard and the mayonnaise, and God willing, we'll talk at you same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch you on the